8,000 kilometers away from Beijing, tourism student Elaine Walwo is learning Mandarin in Seychelles, located off the eastern coast of Africa.
I can speak to clients, interact.
She's attending the Seychelles Tourism Academy with plans to further her studies in China with a scholarship from the Chinese government. Mandarin has become one of the languages to learn in Seychelles. Education is part of China's efforts in Africa, described by the Chinese ambassador to Seychelles as improving people's livelihood and enhancing people-to-people ties. Yin Xiangying is one of 4 teachers in Seychelles working for the China-sponsored Confucius Institute.
Primary school students, they just think learning Chinese is for fun. And other students went for a Chinese scholarship.
There are hundreds of China-sponsored Confucius Institutes in universities around the world that teach Mandarin and culture, but some universities in the West have been closing Confucius Institutes. In 2018, the US Congress restricted federal funding to schools that house Confucius Institutes, concerned they could be pushing Communist Party propaganda. The US once had around 100 institutes. Now, almost all are closed. Many US officials consider Confucius Institutes influence operations of the Chinese government.
Initiatives that are undertaken by a government to shape and affect perceptions towards it.
There's also a second concern.
The criticism is that these Confucius Institutes stifle academic freedom.
The Chinese embassy in Seychelles did not respond to VOA's request for comment. African countries are less worried, with some 60 Confucius Institutes now established across the continent.
There is a demand on the African continent for higher education.
China and the US have been competing for influence on the global stage, including in Seychelles, where the US is also investing in education.
The United States is also aiming to partner with the University of Seychelles. We've already had some educators from Colorado here working on teacher training curricula with the university, and we have other ideas on what to pursue with robotics teams and other initiatives.
But China seems more accessible, says Chinese scholarship recipient Francis Woodcock.
It's quite difficult to get scholarship for the US.
Besides learning Mandarin and economics, Woodcock says he learned about Chinese governance.
There's a bit of ideology that we have to learn about. Of course, when you go to a country, you have to learn about the culture, the system of government.
While China responded to opportunities in Africa to establish Confucius Institutes, the hunger for higher education remains.
And higher education is a major component of international development. That's why countries do it. There's plenty of room for Africa's development partners to increase their engagement.
Nanchulia says the US is still regarded as a place to get a good education, but fewer scholarships make it tougher to study in the US when compared to China. Kate Bartlett, VOA News, Victoria, Seychelles.